Hey there, agency owners. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Outsourcing Angel, the place to go for virtual team and staff from the Philippines. If you head over to there now, that's outsourcingangel.com, you can get a week free with your new virtual team member. So head over and check that out. Now, in this episode of the podcast, myself and my co-host Kim Barrett talk about finding and keeping great people. Now, earlier today, I actually recorded a podcast with Brad Sugars, and he said something that I think is just so true, is like, you don't build your business, your people build your business. It's your job to build your people, and your people will take you all the way. And I think that is just so true. So if you're going down the agency path, having people in your business that can help you grow is just so important. So I hope you enjoy this episode of the podcast, and if you do, please make sure to like and subscribe. All right, guys, we are live for another episode of the Agency Valley podcast. It's Charlie here, the host of the Agency Valley podcast, and I am joined by my fellow co-host, Kim Barrett. How you doing, Kim?
I am doing super well, Mr. Charlie, sir. Thank you very much. And yourself?
Doing well. It's been a really good week. Like, at the time of this recording, this week we got to speak with Brad Sugars earlier today, which was just such a blast. But I feel like Agency Valley is taking off. This podcast is starting to get some real traction.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's great fun recording, but I think there's like so many good people that are reaching out to want to be a part of it, which is awesome.
Yeah, and big thank you to all the people that have subscribed to the show so far. Now, today, Kim, this is a topic that is very close to both our hearts, in all honesty, because both of us have gone down this route of building teams. And what we want to get into today is, I suppose, the art and science of finding and keeping great people, because I feel like it's a bit of both.
I would have to agree. It's almost as art and science inside a circus tent, because I feel like it's also a juggling act, and things can go right and wrong very easily. It's crazy.
It's really fascinating to me, right? It's interesting, I should say, and fascinating, both of them. This area, all right, I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to go straight for the fence here. I think this area has the potential to make or break any agency, and is never given enough importance when it comes to, I'm going to say most businesses don't give this the importance it deserves.
I would say 110%, 110% agree.
And it's like, we even spoke to, when we did speak to Brad, he said this great quote is, you don't build your business, your people build your business. It's your job to build your people, and then they will build your business. And I was like, yes, exactly.
We're just giving little rounds of applause the whole interview. It was great.
Oh, dude, I feel like I was just fanboying. I couldn't help it. I was just so excited.
You definitely were, but I mean, can I share a little story to start off with on this topic, just because it's something I'm also going through at the moment, and more so share a feeling that I have, and then we can delve into a little bit more. Is that okay if I kind of riff on this a little bit?
Absolutely not. Yeah, definitely don't do that.
All right, I'm going to do it anyway because I'm an entrepreneur. I do what I want. So what I wanted to share is that what I find when you're looking for A players, in that when you're in the hiring process, let's say you put out, we'll touch on a little bit more about where you find people and whatnot, but when you get people come in, I think if it's a point in your business that is painful for you currently, where you really want someone, I think you make a lot rasher decisions without the justification behind them. So for me, at the moment, we're looking at bringing on a new media buyer, a new ads manager internally here. And because at the moment, it's a hole that I want to fill as soon as possible so I can focus on other areas of the business. Previously, I know that I made very quick decisions in filling that space because it's going to alleviate stress and pressure for me without really thinking of the long-term ramifications of not getting the right person. It's kind of like, oh, that's future Kim's problem. Today, Kim has this problem. Let's solve that for him and make him happy. But what happens is I make that decision. So recently we've had a couple of applicants come through. The first one or two were not ideal. They didn't complete the process. One came through that was good. They're about to start doing a little bit of trial work for us. Whereas previously I probably would have said, and just said, this person's in. Let's get them in onboard them, work with them, get them to take some, to take some of the pressure off the rest of the team, and let's get things happening. But by adding in a few extra steps for ourselves and waiting, and really not letting me be responsible for making that call, letting our manager make that decision, we wait a little bit longer, and we've got a couple more like really good quality people that have potentially come through, which if we had done what previously we'd done, which is when there was pain, we filled that spot as quick as possible without necessarily going through a process, we would have probably or potentially missed out on these other people. So I think that is a very quick thing that a lot of people have. If you have pain in growth, and we've talked about this in other episodes, when things are growing fast, it's like you just want to alleviate the pressure. So you just bring someone on. And I always have that feeling. And even now, it's like, it's not really pressure, but I kind of want to alleviate and fill that hole as quick as possible. I want quick results now. I'm a millennial, I just want my instant gratification and likes. So I feel like we always want to go for that straight away. But this time I'm noticing a big difference when I am kind of like more removed from it. I don't know if you've had that feeling previously, Charlie.
So I want to ask a deeper question here. I want to ask you something. Is there something in you when you make, in previous circumstances, not this time, when you do hire someone and be rational, do you have something in them where you feel like even if they're not perfect, you can train them up? Are you willing to accept subpar people irrationally, thinking that you can improve them in your house?
Well, I'll answer that probably slightly different to the answer that you're expecting, right? Because we've had this conversation before with you and I, and you said, look, you can take someone from a 7 to a 10 out of 10, but you can't take someone from 1 or 2 to 10 out of 10. So I think what I've done previously is fudge their numbers a bit for them, going, oh, they're pretty good. Yeah, they're a 7. They might be a 5, right? Or a 4 or something like that. And you're like, oh, yeah. Or as well, I probably haven't done previously, not this time around, I haven't done, so this would probably be the last time we did this was like 10 months ago or something like that, right? But we probably didn't do a rigorous enough testing process to get the actual, like, because you can ask many questions, get them to do a few different bits and pieces to try and ascertain what their level is, but there's certain things that I think are, and again, I could be wrong, but it's kind of hard to pull out of people, like levels of attention to detail, speed and accuracy of work, like how fast someone can get something done. I think sometimes is a little bit skewed, especially if you get them to do if you do a test and they come back, oh yeah, that took me like 30 minutes. It's like, well, how do I know that it actually took them 30 minutes if I'm not getting them to do a test in my thing? And then later it takes them 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like those sorts of things I think sometimes are a little bit hard, and they don't really pop up until, well, for me at that time, they didn't pop up until after they joined or after I onboarded them at a very rapid pace.
Kim, I think you have just nailed, right, the absolute root cause, like absolute, in my opinion, of why so many businesses end up with either subpar staff, so like B players, or they end up with a high churn of staff, or they end up just basically in experiences they don't enjoy. So, in your reference, they're definitely creating some of future Kim's problems. I've thought about this a lot. It's even in my notes that you can't see at the moment that I made for this episode. I call it lazy recruiting. And we see many versions of this where the pressure of getting this done and the pressure of it being, if you don't have a HR department and you are the one hiring, is it's so easy to take someone on and say, yeah, let's just go, bring them in, we'll train them up, we'll turn that 7 into a 10, even though they're a 4, we're trying to turn into a 10. And it just escalates and snowballs. And I've 100, and just to, like, I'm not saying that this is an experience where it's like, oh, I knew this and I've never done this wrong. I have fucked this up many a times before I had that realization you had as well. And this is something I think a lot about now.
And I think it's so true because, yeah, it just gets hard. And I think, as you say, like you do go, well, it's like, it's not actually that much longer. And I think, and it's in the world of growth, fast business, things even when we talked about this morning, exponential growth on things. It's like a week is a short, but also a long period of time. So it's like, if I don't plug something in a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, that's half a month. That's, like in your head, you accelerate, I think, depending on how you think about business and how you act upon things. Like I'm a very much an immediate person. If someone tells me something to do, I will follow and execute on that immediately and get it done. So to me, if I think sometimes, especially when I look at my business, if it's going slower in a certain area, I'm like, oh, I'm not getting something done there. So of course I need to fill that hole. Of course I need to get that person in. But if we waited that extra week, which in reality probably did not have that much of an effect on the business, to do an extra test to see if we got any more extra applications, etc., then we probably would have a better outcome at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like this is a growth moment for you. I think you've had a huge realization with team. Like we're doing breakthroughs on the podcast now. All right. Well, look, I'll share one back to you. It's really fascinating to me, this topic. I'm very, very interested in it. So before we started this episode, I told you that basically in the last, let's say 6 months, is that I've actually built a brand new team of 6 people that are focused on an area that I've never done before. So this is a team I've built specific just to work on websites and SEO projects. So I've geared it all up. It's taken me, a good 6 months, probably a little bit longer in all honesty, to put this team together. What I left out though is that has been 10 people. So it took us 10 people and filtering and doing better testing and recruiting and being willing to say after, someone was a month in, you're just not right for this position. And previously, I want to have my own growth moment now. Previously, I wouldn't have done that. Previously, I would have been stubborn and go, no, we'll just train them up. They'll lift with the team. Eventually they'll be right. Where it's like, I've really gone, sometimes you really just have to accept it. And it doesn't mean they're a bad person or a bad worker, but you can literally get someone whose skill set or experience or a whole variety of reasons or culture fit aren't right. And you are so much better moving someone on quickly than you are trying to go through that same thing. So it all comes back to this, lazy hiring theory. If we allow people that aren't right into our business, so if I'd have just hired anyone, this could have been, taking me 20 people to get here instead of 10.
That's so true. And I think sometimes as well, depending on again, reflecting on some of the decisions I've made, sometimes I think I was previously willing to take someone if I thought their skill set was okay, but they were within a good price range. I was like, oh, that's pretty affordable for what they're looking to charge me. I'm like, oh, that's not bad. That's pretty good. So I can get them in, train them up. I've got all the training. I've got some of the best training in the world on running and scaling Facebook ads and stuff. They go through that. I get them at a bargain. And I literally did a post about this the other day, which is do you have champagne taste but a beer budget? And I was like, we do it in our marketing, our finances, our legals, and our team. It's oh, cool. I want the best in the world, but I'm going to pay you for literally I'm going to pay a B player's salary. And it's well, I remember when I was writing that, I was literally when I was writing, I was everyone's going to relate because I can as well. When I was writing the whole post out, I was that's what I'd previously done. And now we've got some people.
Dude, my cheeks hurt. My cheeks actually hurt. I'm smiling so hard at the moment, but continue.
Yeah. Well, because I was looking and it's we had someone come through that applied and because we ask on our, when we are looking for our new A players, we literally our main funnel is from Facebook ads to a landing page, detail, opt-in, and then we have an email with some next steps so we can pick up as well if they have attention to detail, if they check their email, if they do the steps. But one of the questions is the salary expectation. So we put, I think in that one, we said an approx, on-track earnings, what it could be, a ballpark figure. So we say, what are your earnings expectations? And we have someone that put in, someone didn't read it right. They applied and they said 1.8 million. And I was like, mate, you're not coming to work for me and earning 1.8 million, first of all. Definitely not. And one was cool, that whatever it might have been, 50 grand. The other one was cool, 65 to 75. And it might have been a little bit higher than at the time what I was thinking. But what I saw in the application, I was the application is reflective of someone that would be worth potentially 75, 80K a year in the position. So I'm well, again, going back to that thing, actually, in the scheme of things, it's actually not that much more money from paying someone 50 to 70 grand. 20 grand is a big difference in a business, yes, but sometimes it's not if they have $20,000 extra worth of value that they bring with that as well.
Well, go further. Let's say you hire someone for 50 and it doesn't work out, and you hire another person at the same rate of 50. By the time you factor in your recruitment costs and the time invested in hiring and training a new person, you would have been better off with the person for 70. You just spent 70 and now you've got a person that's only 50 quality.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And that's, again, I think it's very important to know those things. But as well, if someone is good and, like, depending on the cash flow, the budgets and the allocation of resources towards it, it's like, don't have that champagne expectation when you're paying for beer.
I feel like I was almost worse here. I feel like you've like stared into my soul. When I, had my first agency when I was doing PPC, I had that attitude. I literally just tried to find the cheapest person I could find on the internet to do Google AdWords, and I was going to train them up, and like it was going to be this amazing ROI, as I'm sure you felt as well, Kim. Don't lie to me. And what's interesting, like, I suppose I could say, like, what do I do differently now? I've found that when I'm hiring for a role, I'll sit down and literally work out what type of return I expect to get from the role. So I'll give you an example. You're talking about hiring potentially a media buyer or an ads manager, whatever you want to call it. And I would sit there and go, Old Charley would just look for cheap and try and make it work. New Charley is more like, okay, well, if I can hire someone and let's pretend they can manage 10 client accounts, and 10 accounts are worth, let's say, I don't know, a couple of grand or $3,000 each or whatever your pricing is. And I go, okay, well, if they can handle 10 clients at $3,000, then they're really worth to me about $30,000 a month, less operating costs in a bit. And I go, if I can pay them, let's say, $8,000 or $10,000 a month, like that's still very much worth it to me to have the right person. So like it kind of helps me to find, like, I suppose, how to get a good ROI from someone and how high I can go to get a level of quality. And then the other thing I really love about this is if I draw this out and I can see, wow, I need someone who's good that was willing to work for $1 an hour. There's not much ROI in this role. Then it really makes me go back to the drawing board on like, how did this role even exist? Or is the business model right to support this type of role?
Yeah, 100%. I think that is so good. And obviously, like the other thing that you look at is, well, if someone has, like you just said there, if you take that as an example, but if they're able then to also, as a business owner, right, if you're a business owner, agency owner listening to this podcast, if they're also able to potentially free up your time, the actual return is exponential. Because if you look at what let's say the value of your time, and if you break that down and it ends up being whatever, $50 an hour, but if they start taking tasks off your desk to allow you to focus on the business growth, if you're turning over $1 million, I think it's on average, I could be wrong here if my maths are right or wrong, but I think it was like $400 an hour, depending on how many hours in a day that you work. So if you're paying $50 an hour and you're returning time that is worth to you $400 an hour, again, it's even better for the business, not only on obviously just the direct client response work, but if it takes time off yours. Like I was speaking with my general manager today, I said, the more time, because we've got 2 new people, we've got 2 roles we're currently hiring for, a media buyer and also some salespeople. I was like, the more time that they take off from me, that I am 100% confident in them on fulfilling and what they're doing, the more they are worth to me. So it's like, if they just come and they just did their role, maybe they're worth $70,000. But if they take more stuff off my plate, then I'm like, cool, their worth goes up like exponentially each time. It's like 80K, 90K, 100K every time. They remove things from me that I also don't have to like not worry about, but like if that's gone from my field of vision and my what I have to focus my attention on every day, and I just focus on the overall exponential growth of the business, then it's like, well, that value increases, crazily over time.
That is a very interesting comment. A very, very interesting one. I think what I've got to highlight, though, is that if you're working in your business, definitely, then every hire you have gone for should support your removal from the business. Like that should be the main goal of your hires, in all honesty. If you're working in your business, then definitely every hire has to support you leveling up and getting out of it. Otherwise, you'll stay stuck in it and eventually burn out like many agency owners do. But once you get to a certain point, and I suppose I'm playing a little bit of a different game here, is like I'm not hiring people to support my time anymore.
Yeah, well,
hiring
I'm
them.
talking from the people listening. Obviously, they're not all just like bike cyclists, chocolate eating Charlie Vallas. That's what we all aspire to be. How to Have Your Chocolate and Eat It Too by Charlie Vallo. I'm waiting for the book to come out. Um,
I'm actually a little bit worried about like diabetes and stuff these days. I'm like, I really need to cut back.
couple green smoothies in there, man. You'll be fine.
Oh, but I think we've almost just found a title for another episode. Like, because that is absolutely so important to consider from like, how to leverage your time out, how to hire, and like keeping the focus on your time. Like every hire should support your time, not additioning the business at that point.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to know as well. And obviously, I think we got comments somewhere wherever people listen or watch this is going, are they still in the business or on the business? It'll be very interesting to see because obviously that does dictate as well, very much so. Like as I said, you think about things slightly differently because I'm on the business, but I'm still in the business somewhat in certain areas. So you probably think about things very differently, being that you're already external versus someone who's internal as well.
Oh, totally. And we all go through different stages and do different things. There's no right or wrong way to do things. My personal view is like I very much aspire to not be in the businesses I own. But that doesn't mean you have to. But I would be very fascinated to hear where people are at that are listening to this show, because I think it would be a good thing for us to know so we can make obviously more relevant content to help them on the path they're on.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'll switch it up here because you've already like nailed like what I think are the two like very, very interesting things. Like if you want to have phenomenally more success with finding and keeping great people, number one, don't be lazy with recruitment. Do not hire your friends and family. Go through a proper process, put an ad up on Seek or Craigslist or whatever it is you're using to recruit people, filter them hard, even try them for a month and be willing to let them go if they're not well. Like there's so many things you can do to improve like that part of it with not being lazy with finding people. But then point two is I'm going to just directly quote you because I think it's so relevant here, is like, you can't have a champagne flavor or a champagne taste if your budget is a beer taste. And I would just get people to really think about the cost of re-recruitment or the cost of having a B player, because one A player can like dramatically change a company. One great person can shift things hugely. And I've got some great examples of this that I'll come back to, but I think that's just so huge. But the next thing I want to ask then, Kim, is like, in all your experience of hiring people, where have you found good people? What's been your most successful avenues for finding A players or great people?
Funnily enough, it's number one has been referral based. Number two has been internship based. Number three has been Facebook ad based. So I'll quickly touch on each. So number one, I have had in the past people go, hey, like this person is really good at this. Do you just want to have a conversation with them? And I've had a chat, and right then and there it hasn't come off to anything, but later circled back and they've become part of our team. And then when I look at some of our long-standing team members at the moment, both that have done funnel work with us, and one of them's gone off and started his own company now, which is awesome. And two, our graphic and video editing team member as well. Both of them started from internships. So they actually came in, they worked with us for free. We gave them experience, exposure, and things like that. And both those people were probably the longest standing and most successful within our business from a retention standpoint also. Came through from internships, from starting working for free and then coming in and becoming part of our team after that, which has been really, really successful for us over time. We still currently have two interns at them. Two interns? One just finished, and we have a new intern at the moment that's come through, and who knows what could happen with them in the future also. And then lastly has been, we've just run Facebook, being a Facebook ad company, if you will, for lack of better words. It's we've always run Facebook ads because it's like, well, I can kind of target the type of people that I want as well. And I would probably say I say it third because it's probably been it's third in the rankings of people that have stayed with us the longest and given us the best outcome. And only because we still have some current hires that we're going through that process that, if you ask me in 3 or 6 months, I may change that. It may go up number one, or I may say it's terrible, but we'll see after the next round of hiring as well.
I love that you have like a proof in the pudding type concept. It's like, we do Facebook ads, we're going to use Facebook ads. Like, you just scored massive points with me. I really, really like that. But what's fascinating, they're very different avenues than I've gotten my best people from. So it just goes to show there's multiple ways to go about this. And I guess I really like it. I'm kind of curious on this. Have you found the internship route has been good because you've brought people on that are, I suppose, hungry to learn and develop, and you've been able to develop them in your way of doing things?
A good question. I would say one aspect of that is definitely there, but I find when, like, I think it's unspoken within internship that potentially if you work really hard and work well, there's something for you there, right? If you can show, and it's like, I remember when I did work experience at school and internships, it's like, obviously it's cool that businesses have support where people come and work for free, right? No one's going to say no to that. However, if people show merit, hard work, attention to detail, I think it's almost an unspoken rule of those things where you go, well, potentially, if there's something available, they may offer me a job. Like, I remember when I went and did work experience when I was a kid, I worked really hard, and at the end of it, I didn't have any expectation of that, but I had heard it happen for other people. And at the end, they're like, "Hey, Kim, do you want to work here? Do you want to come on board as a team member?" So I was like, "Well, okay, that's it. That's really cool." It didn't pan out at the time just because I was still at school, so what they were looking for didn't kind of match up for my hours of availability. But that was kind of set as an expectation. So I think that when you work hard, you are open to learning. You learn new ways. You're like malleable regardless of kind of how old you are, and you do really want to show and prove yourself. They're all key, I would say, criteria and aspects that I look for in anyone, regardless of type of role that they're coming on for. So plus the benefit that I get to see their work without having to pay for it as well is another plus. So I think it does work quite well.
It's pretty much exactly what you're looking for from your potential hires anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's like exactly what you want, and it's like, and they have to prove themselves. And if they don't, then it's like, cool, you've come and done some work. I sign off that you've done a great internship. Well done, thank you. And it's all positive from there.
That's pretty much how I got my first job, by the way. It was work experience.
Yeah.
And I killed it because I was like, I want this job. And they're like, yeah, come work with us.
Yeah, that's why I think it's like it's a great opportunity to see what people are made of.
Yeah, definitely.
So what were yours then? You said yours was slightly different to mine. What were the key ones for yourself?
All right, so definitely slightly different. My number one, right, is actually been from courses, right? So I know this sounds really funny, but it's like where I found my best agency staff was that I would, let's say, I'll even tell you the specific ones. So like I bought a course from a guy called Mike Rhodes on Google AdWords. He had a fantastic course. That's something I wanted to learn more about at the time. And then he had a community with his course. Now everyone's like, that's pretty common these days. Like every course you buy has a Facebook group. Absolutely. And that's where I got my great hires. Now the reason I looked there is because I knew there was people in this group that were already skilled in the thing that I was trying to do. Like we'd done the same training. So I had some of my best hires, or one of my best hires in that example is I found a great AdWords guy who was technically skilled but wasn't doing so well in his own gig. So he was like, sweet, I'm happy to come and work for you. And then he was already trained. Like, and I could see he was the type of person that invested in his own education. So like that was another little green light that kind of works for me, is I love when I see people that are invested in training in their own development. So that was my hot tip number one. I've had numerous technical, especially for like technically skilled people, that has been my best avenue by a mile.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like if they're going through, as you say, they're investing in themselves, they want to learn, they like for all intents and purposes, obviously not necessarily does everyone, but they should have the technical ability after going through something like that to do it. So yeah, that's a great one. Yeah,
so whatever your agency's doing, like just go buy some courses and get in those communities and like use them as recruitment pools.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's great.
Yeah, and then the second one, funnily enough, is very similar to yours, is network. So this is, I suppose, later on in my journey, but it's like at Outsourcing Angel, we've really started hiring C-level people. So this is that, big jump in management where it's like, okay, now we've got a COO and we've got a marketing manager and a sales manager and things like that. All of our best hires in Outsourcing Angel have been through network and referral.
I think as well, when you start to look for some of those more senior ones, it does help when you can find people that you do know already have that level of experience and other people can vouch for them. It does make a big difference, I think, especially at the higher levels of hiring.
Oh, totally. And it feels more like, and I know this is going to sound weird, but it feels more like hunting than farming, right? So it's like, I feel like, let's say I wanted to hire a new VA. That's farming. I'll put something out there and some people will apply for the job and we filter, I've planted the seed, people come, we farm it. In this game is like, I'm almost like looking for the person I want who has the experience or has done the thing that my company's trying to achieve. Big hint right there. So much easier when you hire people that have already done the thing you're trying to achieve. And then I just like attack. We go for that person.
There's a reason it's called headhunting, right? That's why exactly.
Totally.
I love it.
It's so funny though. It's like, oh, you know how you got that job? Oh, look, it's just pretty much a game of like, and I know this sounds terrible once again, but it's like a job of making them realize how shit their job is and like how much greener the grass is on this side. It's
exactly. You're dangling the carrot over the fence.
Absolutely. And again, it's like one of those things where we kind of recognize, much like you, is that, in my opinion, like great talent and A players probably already have a job. It's very rare you find great people just sitting around doing nothing unless they've had a sabbatical or time off or something like that. So I've kind of found that we've acknowledged that if we can find people that have done the thing we're trying to do, then just headhunting for that is just going to be like petrol on a fire. It's going to be an accelerant. And it's proven to be that, it really has. Yeah,
no, that's so true. I love that one.
All right, so next round of questions there. So finding people I thought was really interesting. I kind of want to almost shift this one because I thought about this a lot. What about keeping A players? Have you put much, or keeping a great people? Have you had any challenges with good people leaving? Or have you had any challenges with you've hired someone that's good and then they've actually declined in performance over time?
I would say no. And the reason being is that I think that I have probably worked in enough places that I didn't want to stay in, that I knew what I kind of had to do to keep people around, if that makes sense. So obviously, like the big thing that makes the biggest difference there is culture. If you look at the hierarchy of needs and the 7 human needs and all that sort of stuff, and if you can kind of you can help look at fulfillment, contribution, love, all these different things, all the different areas, I think that you can very easily keep people as long as if your business is doing good and you have clients that are doing good, you're not dealing with people who are not bad, but it's like just like not fun to work with or not engage, like people that are like, I don't want to talk to this person. Like that would be the worst experience ever if you had a job like that. So being the fact that I have worked probably different to some other people, it's like I've worked in companies where there was like 25 people. I've worked in companies where there were 10 people, where there was 3 people, and each of them along the way, I could tell you exactly the reasons why I would not want to stay or why I would want to stay. Most of them I had not wanted to stay. Only one place that I wanted to stay that I didn't was because the boss made me not want to stay, but everything else within the company made me want to stay. So I've done my best to take from those experiences for myself, which is building a good team, building a fun environment, building an environment that has we are casual but not slack, where we are fun but we don't mess around. We're not here to one of the sayings that we have, which was from both of us have heard before plenty. I'll give you the G-rated version, which is we're not here to fornicate with arachnids, right? Like we're not here to muck around. So we want to get stuff done, but we also want to have fun along the way. We want to celebrate and reward together. We go and we did a Christmas trip. We do all this sort of stuff that all of our team is a part of, and that's really something that's important to us and to me. And going, well, yeah, there are all the different things that I sometimes either lacked or missed out on in other roles that I had, that I wanted to make sure that if I was ever, which I am now obviously, leading a team, that they would be able to get the benefit from.
That's huge. Honestly, that is so huge. And I just want to say well done on spotting those things from your previous experiences.
No,
I think that is massive.
Very evident for me. A lot of them I was like, oh, yeah, they were painful.
I feel like for me personally, I'm actually a bit of an introvert. I'm one of those people that I suppose you would say is more IQ and low EQ. EQ is an area I've really had to work. And it's quite fascinating that, when I look back on my first agency and I look at how I was treating people, I just didn't realize I was an asshole. Like, I'll be real. Like, I didn't realize that I was abrupt or could be rude or anything like that, or that I could put pressure on people. And I think that certainly at times played a role in not developing staff well. And it was only later on that Lynn, funnily enough, my co-founder at Outsourcing Angel, made me aware of it. I was like, wow, I've got to work on this. I've really, really got to work on this. And, to look at it as like, I suppose I was a bit of a hurricane manager. I was just like coming in and making a mess, and like the team didn't feel very valued, and the culture wasn't very good. And I had to go through that experience to kind of, I suppose, improve things and learn from that. But the other thing I really kind of, I suppose, learned from that experience, I want you to imagine, right, that like A players are like clean water, and like B players or C players are like poison, right? Now, this works in both ways. If you have this nice, clean pool of A players and you drop some poison in there, you will poison the whole pot. And on vice versa, if you've got a team of B players that are all poison and you put some clean water in there, you'll actually just poison the new A player and turn it into a B player. Like, something I've found overwhelmingly in recent times is just like how important that is to the success of the team. I really feel like you've got to be very, very protective of your good people and making sure that you're not introducing subpar people into your team. Otherwise, you have a huge potential to just like bring down the overall quality of the squad.
Yeah, that is so true. And then obviously, yeah, if that does happen, if you have a pool of either B players or you bring them in, hopefully, fingers crossed, based on listening to this podcast, people will be able to start to identify some of these things and spot them and going, well, okay. And if you have one A player going into a pool of B players, obviously I feel sorry for you. Hopefully you can find some to mix that up. But obviously the bringing those people in, I think sometimes though, if you do have, I think generally you'll find, and this is my experience, if you have a pretty good cohesive team, say they're all got clean water A players happening, if something comes into it, generally speaking, they are from people who are normally like for lack of a better words, like they're not bitchy, they don't really complain that much, they get stuff done. When something comes in and that affects that, generally they're the first to speak up. And I think it's being able to identify that, because the biggest thing I always say is like, if you have a good cohesive team and something comes up and rocks the whole boat, generally people that are not normally commenting on certain things will start to make comments. They'll start to like point things out and you've just got to be willing to be able to see that. And that's something that I saw in many, like one of the companies that I worked in was 98% female. I was male and the boss was male. So it'll be very interesting when a new girl would come in, right? Obviously it's very different, obviously sometimes how guys and girls react in certain situations. But if they didn't get along with like a couple of the ladies, generally they wouldn't get along with the rest of them, because the rest of them, everyone was all on the same page. So as soon as that would happen, the girls would like, some of their personalities would kind of flip, and I'd be like, why are you guys acting like this? And then I'd be like, oh, well, obviously the new girl is not getting along well with everyone for whatever reason. And most of the time it's something is generally work related, not normally anything outside of that. And then that would have to be, okay, cool. I was like, all right, they're not going to be, I could just tell us like, they're not going to be here for very long. And again, nothing to say their personality or anything was bad, but if they didn't have that same sort of work ethic, delivery, and culture fit, then it was very quick that I saw that happening.
Interesting. That is so interesting. And I'll explain again why that is interesting. Obviously, Outsourcing Angel is a company that is like 97% females, and very similar things I have seen down. Now, I'm not saying this is a female thing. I'm not saying this is a male thing, but there's certainly a connection to the idea that if certain people don't get along with certain people on the team, they probably won't last.
Yeah, it happens very quickly.
So what's your number one tip for keeping good people then?
Well, number one is probably something that we haven't touched on, is like if they're good and they're joining the team and obviously they're a culture fit, I think you really have to understand on this side, like one thing that might sound a little bit weird to people, but figure out what their love language is, right? Because a lot of people don't have a connection with people, and it's like the way that they reward might be financial, it might be with gifts, it might be with words of praise, whatever it might be. But if that's not what they want, it doesn't really matter, because you can have a lot of the other boxes being ticked, but if that key area that they're looking for isn't ticked, then they won't get it. like I know in some of the companies I worked with, like people just wanted to spend time with the boss because the boss was like a technical, brilliant person, like was like super creative, but he never made time. It's like, cool, like you want a raise, I'll give you a raise, or you want like this, you want a new, like it was an IT company, you want this, I'll give you this. But a lot of them I could see, it's like, well, they want to connect with a person that they aspire to be like and similar, but if you didn't make the time for them, very easy, the good people would be like, okay, well, I'm going to bail to somewhere else where I can get that met, even if they don't know how to articulate that.
That is the best answer. I can't even match that. Like that is, I just think that is so spot on. I had another framing for that, but it's so interesting. I've seen similar things. Like if they want his time, he's literally throwing money at them.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like it's impossible. And I know because it's like I've had many people come that have done work for me before that have taken a pay cut to come in and do it, and it's like, cool. Well, obviously money is like, I think, and one of my friends, Julian, runs a company, Happiness Co. And it's like in happiness in the workplace, money is like the fifth determining factor, and generally happiness is what also correlates to retention as well. And when you think about it like that, it's like, like a lot of the time, like we may not pay the highest of the highest rates in the agency industry, but it's like everything else I think that we do correlates to them being happier and having a better work environment. And I always do my best to try and figure out what it is that people respond the best to. I've only ever had one time where I couldn't figure it out and that person didn't stay. But then that was a different type of, there was a whole different situation with that one. But everyone else where I have been able to somewhat figure that out, it's like it's made sense and has built and forged stronger and stronger relationships over time.
That is such a good answer, Kim. That is such a good answer. And I tend to agree. It's like I have this overwhelming belief is that if I can find out what's important to my staff and what their goals are, and I can align that with what they're doing at the company so they can see that, you know, their work here contributes to them getting what they want, they tend to stick around. It's only when that becomes at conflict do you really see people leave.
Exactly. And it's the same as we said before about the human needs. It's like if needs are met, there's nothing is really going to, like, not that nothing's going to change, but it's like there's no reason to look elsewhere.
Definitely. Unless I'm headhunting for them. Then
yeah, exactly. Unless Charlie comes in and stirs shit up.
Oh, well, Kim, a lot of value shared on this podcast on people. And I think, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground that people don't really talk about. Like I've listened to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of books on team, and a lot of it is focused on like, you know, A players and what an A player looks like. But I think what's happened in this conversation is we've covered a lot of things people may not be looking at.
Well, I hope so, because I think it's like obviously all those things that, you know, any other resources give you in terms of finding A players is important. But I think when you bring it all together, it's like you've got like a irresistible formula.
Yeah, I agree. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this episode of the podcast. Now, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you to my co-host, Kim Barrett. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me again, sir.
No worries at all, guys. That's it for this episode.